Ever watched a reality show where someone steps up to the mic, swears they're the best singer in the world, then proceeds to butcher a song so badly that dogs start howling? It's painful, yet hilarious. You sit there wondering, how did they not know they were terrible? This isn't just a reality show phenomenon, it's everywhere. The coworker who dominates meetings but never has a useful idea. The reckless driver who swears they're the best on the road. The person online who read one article and now thinks they know more than doctors. Bertrand Russell summed it up best. The whole problem with the world is that fools and fanatics are so sure of themselves, while wiser people are so full of doubt. This is the Dunning-Kruger effect in action. People who are bad at something often think they're great at it. Meanwhile, skilled people doubt themselves because they know how much they don't know. The less you know, the easier it is to feel like an expert. Imagine someone who's just started cooking. They make instant noodles once and think, wow, I'm a chef now. They start offering cooking tips, posting recipes online, maybe even judging others' food. The problem? They don't know how much skill goes into real cooking. Now take an actual chef. They've spent years learning techniques, understanding flavors, mastering timing. But instead of boasting, they say, there's always more to learn. They see how much they don't know and respect the complexity of their craft. That's the Dunning-Kruger effect. Incompetent people overestimate themselves, while skilled people underestimate themselves. The key reason? Beginners don't know enough to realize what they don't know. Experts have seen so much that they know there's still more to learn. This effect shows up everywhere, from classrooms to offices, from politics to sports. And it's not just about other people. We all fall into this trap sometimes too. Ever been in a car with someone who swears they're the best driver on the road, while tailgating, ignoring signals, and cutting people off? Studies show that elderly drivers, for example, are 4 times more likely to make unsafe driving mistakes. Yet, many of them believe they're better than the average driver. It's not just older drivers. Many people rate themselves as above average behind the wheel. Statistically, that's impossible. If everyone was above average, who's left in the bottom half? The internet has given everyone a voice. That's great, until people start mistaking having an opinion for having expertise. Someone watches a 10-minute video about nutrition and suddenly thinks they know more than a registered dietitian. Another person reads a political headline and suddenly believes they understand foreign policy better than experts who've spent decades studying it. The less someone actually knows, the more confident they seem to be. Why? Because they don't know what they don't know. Ever watched a game show and seen someone answer a simple question so confidently, yet get it completely wrong? Host: what's the capital of France? Contestant: Rome. Host: no. It's funny, but also a great example of the Dunning-Kruger effect. These contestants think they know the answer. They don't hesitate. They don't second guess. But they're dead wrong. Every office has that person. The one who talks the loudest in meetings, interrupts everyone, and acts like they have all the answers. But when it comes to actual results, they're often the least competent. A study on medical lab workers found that the least skilled employees rated themselves the highest in competence. The best workers, on the other hand, were much more modest. They knew how complex their job was, so they didn't assume they had it all figured out. The same pattern shows up in schools, too. The lowest performing college students dramatically overestimate their test scores. The top students, meanwhile, tend to underestimate themselves. The biggest problem with the Dunning-Kruger effect is that it's a blind spot. People don't realize they're clueless. They don't think, maybe I don't know enough about this topic. Instead, they assume, I know enough to be right. And let's be honest, we've all done this at some point. Maybe you thought you understood investing after watching a few YouTube videos. Maybe you thought fixing a car was easy, until you actually open the hood. The more experience we gain, the more we realize how much we don't know. And that's a good thing. It keeps us open to learning. It makes us less arrogant. It stops us from being the person who argues about politics at Thanksgiving with no real facts to back it up. So, next time you catch yourself thinking you know something for sure, stop and ask, am I really an expert in this? Could I be missing something? Am I just confident or actually competent? Because the truth is, The most dangerous kind of ignorance isn't not knowing. It's thinking you already know everything. The Dunning-Kruger effect is everywhere. It's why bad drivers think they're great. It's why clueless people on social media talk like experts. It's why the loudest person in the room is often the least informed. But here's the twist. Even knowing about the Dunning-Kruger effect doesn't make you immune to it. We all have blind spots. The trick is to stay humble, keep learning, and never assume we have everything figured out. Because the moment you start thinking, I'm probably the smartest person in the room, you've just proved that you're not. Picture this. You watch a few YouTube videos about stock trading. Now you're throwing around terms like bull market and diversification like a Wall Street pro. You check your brokerage app, make a few trades, and tell your friends, investing is easy. Then, boom, your portfolio crashes. Turns out knowing a little feels like knowing a lot. That's how our brains work. The less we know, the more confident we feel. The more we learn, the more we realize how much we don't know. This is the Dunning-Kruger trap. And it's not just about investing. It happens in every area of life: science, politics, relationships, health. The big question is, why? To understand why the Dunning-Kruger effect happens, we need to look at how knowledge works. Imagine 4 boxes. Known knowns, stuff you know you know. This is conscious competence, the things you've learned and are fully aware of. You know how to ride a bike. You know how to cook your favorite meal. You know that fire burns. This is where competence feels comfortable. You know what you're doing, and you know that you know it. Known unknowns. Stuff you know you don't know. This is where awareness begins. You know that quantum physics exists, but you don't understand it. You know that languages like Mandarin are complex, but you don't speak them. You know that brain surgery is a thing, but you wouldn't try it yourself. The key here? You're aware of your ignorance, which means you can choose to learn. Unknown knowns. Stuff you forgot you know. This is unconscious competence. Things you've learned so deeply that you do them automatically. You instinctively navigate your hometown without thinking. You type on a keyboard without analyzing every keystroke. You drive without constantly thinking about every little motion. The danger? Experts often forget what it's like to be a beginner. They assume things are obvious when they're not, making it harder for them to teach or explain their knowledge to others. Unknown unknowns. Stuff you don't know you don't know. This is where ignorance is dangerous. A beginner investor doesn't know about market risks, so they think making money is easy. Someone with no experience in psychology assumes human behavior is simple. A person who has never studied medicine thinks doing their own research makes them an expert. This is where the Dunning-Kruger effect lives. Because if you don't even know what you're missing, you have no reason to doubt yourself. When we're beginners, we only see what's inside our tiny knowledge box. We don't realize how much more exists beyond it. For example, a person who knows nothing about psychology thinks, therapy? Just talk about your feelings. Someone with a little psychology knowledge says, cognitive behavioral therapy is the best. A real psychologist thinks, therapy is complex and different methods work for different people. The difference? The beginner sees only a small part of the field. The expert sees the entire landscape, including how much they still need to learn. Picture a simple graph. At the start, there's a tiny hill labeled Peak of Ignorant Confidence. This is where beginners think they know it all. Then there's a steep drop, the Valley of Doubt. This is where people learn just enough to realize how much they don't know. Finally, there's a long, slow climb, the slope of understanding. This is where real expertise forms. The scary part? Most people never make it past the first hill. They get just enough knowledge to feel confident, but not enough to realize their mistakes. Think about it. New parents read one baby book and think they've got parenting figured out. New employees take a few training sessions and believe they could run the company. A casual chess player wins a few games and suddenly thinks they could compete in a tournament. Meanwhile, the real experts, the doctors, CEOs, grandmasters, are always learning. They see how big the world of knowledge is, and it keeps them humble. The takeaway? If you're 100% confident about something complex, that's a red flag. The truth is usually more complicated than it seems. Now, before you start nodding along, thinking, yeah, dumb people do this all the time, here's the hard part. We all fall for this trap. Yep, even you, even me. So ask yourself, have I ever thought I knew something, then later realized I was clueless? Do I assume I'm above average at certain things? Driving, cooking, arguing? Am I actually questioning my beliefs or just assuming I'm right? If you answered yes to any of these, congratulations, you're human. The first step to avoiding the Dunning-Kruger trap is realizing you might be in it. The problem is, most people don't take this step. They'd rather feel certain than admit doubt. Here's the uncomfortable truth. People don't like feeling unsure. Our brains crave certainty. We don't like to admit we might be wrong, so we cling to beliefs, even if they're flawed. This is why people double down when challenged. Conspiracy theorists ignore evidence. Political fanatics won't budge no matter how much proof you show them. It's not about facts, it's about ego and identity. A study found that when people's beliefs were questioned, their brain's pain centers activated. Literally, it hurts to be wrong. That's why learning about cognitive biases doesn't make people immune to them. Even knowing about the Dunning-Kruger Effect won't stop you from falling for it. The scariest part of the Dunning-Kruger Effect isn't just that clueless people think they're geniuses, it's that even smart people can be clueless and not realize it. So what can you do? Embrace doubt. Question what you know instead of assuming you're right. Stay humble. Even experts don't have all the answers. Keep learning. The more you learn, the more you'll realize how much you don't know. Because the real measure of intelligence isn't confidence, it's curiosity. And if you're sitting there thinking, well, at least I'm not like those other people, you might want to think again. All right, so you've made it this far. You understand the Dunning-Kruger effect. You've probably even thought of a few people in your life who fit the description perfectly. But here's the kicker. Just knowing about this effect doesn't protect you from it. We'd all love to believe that learning about cognitive biases makes us immune to them. But studies show that even when people are educated about biases, they still fall for them. Why? Because our brains don't like admitting we're wrong. Recognizing our own ignorance takes effort, and most people would rather stick to their comfortable illusions. Think about it. How often do people say, wow, I was completely wrong about that? Rarely, because it's hard. It bruises the ego. And so we keep falling into the same trap, convinced that this time we've got it all figured out. So if we're all at risk of overestimating ourselves, how do we avoid becoming that person? The smartest 3 words in the English language? I don't know. People avoid saying this because they think it makes them look dumb. Ironically, admitting uncertainty is one of the smartest things you can do. Next time you're unsure about something, say it. You might be surprised at how freeing it feels. Instead of acting like an expert, approach topics with curiosity. Before forming an opinion, ask, what do I actually know about this? Where did I get my information? Could I be missing something? Smart people don't just look for answers, they ask better questions. If you're the smartest person in the room, find a new room. Being around people who challenge your thinking is the best way to grow. The problem? Many people prefer staying in circles where everyone agrees with them. Challenge yourself to be in spaces where you might not be the smartest person there. Ever noticed how people confidently make claims without checking if they're true? Before making bold statements, take a moment to verify. Is this actually correct, or am I just assuming it is? It's fine to be confident. Just make sure your confidence is backed by actual knowledge. The loudest person in the room isn't always the smartest. Confidence does not equal competence. Just because someone sounds like an expert doesn't mean they are one. Be skeptical of people who always act 100% certain about everything. Let's be real. At some point, we've all tried to argue with someone who was completely wrong. Maybe it was a conspiracy theorist. Maybe it was a stubborn coworker. Maybe it was a family member at Thanksgiving dinner. And how did it go? Probably not well. People don't like being proven wrong. When someone's beliefs are challenged, their brain goes into defense mode. Instead of saying, oh, I see your point, they dig in harder. This is called the backfire effect. Basically, when people feel their identity is threatened, they don't change their minds. They double down. It's not about logic, it's about identity. Most beliefs aren't just about facts. They're tied to who we are. A political belief isn't just an opinion, it's part of someone's tribe. A religious belief isn't just a worldview, it's part of their identity. So when you challenge someone's belief, they don't just hear, "You're wrong." They hear, "Your entire way of thinking is flawed." And that feels like an attack. If arguing with people rarely works, what's the alternative? Most people don't change their minds in the heat of an argument. The best you can do? Plant a seed. Give them something to think about, then let it sit. People don't like being forced into change. But over time, that seed might grow. Instead of trying to fix others, focus on improving yourself. Show humility in your own thinking. Admit when you don't know something. People respect those who are confident and open-minded. Some people just aren't ready to change. And that's okay. If someone is clearly not open to new ideas, don't waste your energy. Sometimes the best move is to just let it go. The Dunning-Kruger Effect teaches us a tough lesson. The less you know, the more confident you feel. The more you know, the more you realize how much you don't know. So what's the solution? Humility. Be curious, not certain. Ask more questions than you answer. Stay open to new ideas. Recognize that you might be wrong. Because the moment you start thinking, "I'm the smartest person in the room," you've probably just proven that you're not. And if you're sitting there thinking, "Man, I'm so good at being humble," well, congratulations. You've just fallen for the trap all over again.